Storm Roundup. John Potter with you. Greetings and salutations as we bring you the first in-studio version of our program. Last week, you got to see highlights from our Dixie State Storm Club Booster Luncheon with comments from all of our coaches from football and men's and women's soccer, golf, all of our great fall sports. But today, we started in studio. Greetings and salutations. I'm John Potter, joined as always by the host of The Drive on ESPN Sports Radio, Devin Dixon. And Dev, can't wait to start talking about Red Storm sports on a weekly basis, and we've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time for this week.
Yeah, we really do. Coach Brumfield going to join us a little bit later in the show. We're going to highlight all the fall sports, where they're going, where they've been, bring you up to speed on the home opener in football last week. It was a busy week down on campus last week with that home opener and then the Hall of Fame inductions. You hosted that, JP. A lot of fun for everybody involved.
Yeah, 4 great, deserving people that got in, 3 individuals and 1 team. Linda Huddleston, our former women's soccer coach, getting inducted for not only her progress and performance on the field as a coach, but a lot of legacy going on of her student athletes and academics off the field as well. Also, Ken Jolly, one of our great volunteers who had over 30 years of experience helping out as a table volunteer, official scorer, and official timekeeper, inducted. Current BYU basketball coach Dave Rose was inducted for his not only playing but coaching experience here at Dixie College, now Dixie State University, and of course commemorating the 50-year anniversary of the undefeated 1963 football team. All of the players were here. Coach Sarkar Salanian, the legendary coach, was here. So a great weekend in the Hall of Fame, and it kind of just kicked off and capped off a weekend and a week of great Dixie State sports with our soccer teams out on the road and our football team in their home opener against Azusa Pacific in the GNAC. We'll have, as Devin said, highlights from that ball game. We'll have the head coach Scott Brumfield in for an interview, and kind of every coach that you can think of for fall sports and spring sports coming up, we'll have them on the roundup as we continue week on here for the roundup and the weekly podcast.
Yeah, and real quick, 30-26, they did lose in football to APU. The Cougars came in after taking an early lead. We were delayed. We were over a 2-hour lightning delay. John and I were up watching the bolts hit the sky in the booth, and it was one of many delays around the country that we've had for lightning the last couple of weeks. And I don't know what to make of that. Obviously, the Storm came out and didn't respond after that lengthy delay, and they ended up losing that home opener 36-20. There's a lot of questions to be answered, and Coach Brumfield will get to answer some of those questions for us when he joins us later in the show.
Yeah, he mentioned in his post-game interview starting from the bottom up, basically, when it comes to reevaluating everything that goes on in Dixie State football. And it'll be interesting to talk with him about exactly what he meant by that and what has happened so far earlier in the preparations for Western Oregon, which is coming up this weekend.
Yeah, real quickly, show today brought to you by our friends at Salisbury Homes, as well as Roy's Pizza, Stapley Pharmacy, the Tire Company in Cedar City, the Air Force, and, of course, our friends at let me forget this right. Missing somebody. I think I got everybody, JP.
That's good.
Off and running.
Off and running. We're going to take a quick time out, but when we return on the roundup, we'll have the highlights from Saturday's football game against Azusa Pacific. As promised, we'll be joined by Scott Brumfield, the head football coach, and we'll also have capsules on all the other sports that happened this past week. With Devin Dixon, I'm John Potter, and this is the Red Storm Roundup. Stick with us.
When you want delicious pizza, look no further than Roy's Pizza and Pasta. We only use the freshest ingredients from the toppings to the crust, or choose from any of our delicious pastas. With 8 different noodles and 4 sauces to choose from, you can create your own genuine Italian experience. Come on into Roy's at 1013 East, 700 South. Pick up, dine in, or delivery. Phone number is 435-673-8222.
Why is Salisbury Homes the #1 builder in Southern Utah? It's simple. Unmatched quality, more selection, and happy homeowners. You'll love seeing prices less than buying an existing home. Amazing locations and a 45-day build schedule. The time to build is now, before prices go up. And with Salisbury, choose from dozens of floor plans, all beautifully designed, and you pick your own colors and finishes. Visit alwaysaffordablehomes.com today or call Kim 801-404-6041.
Salisbury Homes. Welcome back to the Roundup Red Storm style with Devin Dixon. I'm John Potter. Time to take a look at the festivities from last Saturday, the home opener as the Great Northwest Athletic Conference schedule opened up as Dixie State hosted Azusa Pacific. Let's take a look at the scoreboard and some of the stats from that ball game. As you can see, Dixie State losing their home opener 36-20 to the Cougars of APU. The Cougars now on a 5-game conference winning streak dating back to last season as they even up their season record, and the Storm dropping to 0-2. Some individual numbers, as you can see on there. Jake Duncan, a spectacular game on the defensive side, tackling with 14 tackles, getting a career-high tying number, which dated back to 2012 against Adams State, and really the guy that anchored the defense for Dixie State in that ballgame, Dev.
Yeah, he was our player of the game on the defensive side of the ball, and for good reason. He was a one-man wrecking crew. He was everywhere. He was flying around. You know, it was kind of funny. For the last couple of years, he's kind of been Jodon's little brother. He's his own man now. I mean, he's really come into his own. That was a very impressive performance. You know, I talked to him walking out of the stadium. He was still in uniform, and it was like 11:30 Saturday night. And I said, hey, you should feel good. You played really well tonight. You gave it 110%. He said, doesn't matter. We still got a loss. And that's the kind of kid Jake Duncan is. And a great performance. Hopefully there's more of those to come, but hopefully W's to follow up with them.
On the offensive side of the football, it was a dual effort. Griff Robles got the start for Dixie State and really led a nice drive after the 2-hour-plus lightning delay, and led a no-huddle, quick offense for a touchdown strike. Didn't have bad numbers, throwing for 212 yards on 17 of 30 passing with a touchdown. Did have a pick later on in the ball game. But really the surprise of the contest was in the fourth quarter when Dixie State made the change and brought in the sophomore Brody Garr, who threw for a couple touchdowns, 155 yards overall. Really his only mistake was a fumble in the midway portion of that fourth quarter.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell, and it's hard to judge exactly how good Brody's performance was. Was it mop-up time? And it was hard to tell exactly how many starters were on the field, but you credit him for being ready. When your number's called, you got to be ready. Now, did Griff, play terrible? No, he didn't play terrible, but when Brody came in, they seemed to get a little bit of a spark, and that's why when we talk to Coach Brumfield coming up a little later, we'll ask him about his thoughts when he broke down the film on those two. Last year we went through this, JP, with Nawahini and Griff, and we weren't sure week to week. We were checking the depth charts, who's going to be the starter, and we didn't think that was going to happen this year, but maybe just a little bit of a prelim or a little glimpse of what could happen if Griff doesn't play even better this coming week. He looks to be the starter this week. At least he's listed on the depth chart as the #1 quarterback going into the game at Western Oregon.
Yeah, 2 words you didn't expect to hear would be quarterback controversy,
right.
And we might have that coming into this ball game against Western Oregon. On the receiving side, Jodon Duncan got his 3rd touchdown of the year with a 4th quarter grab, and also Mitch Fry led the way with 5 receptions. Let's go ahead and take a look at some highlights from that ball game. We joined the highlights after the lightning delay over at Hanson Stadium in the ball game against Azusa Pacific.
Yeah, you're going to see Joel Davis right here. This is a 34-yarder, and he's got quickness, doesn't he, as he takes it to the house.
That was right after the lightning delay, after Azusa Pacific put up a field goal to lead 10-0. And here are the Cougars later on responding to that play. A nice touchdown throw to the back of the end zone to Tanner Henry from Nick Owens, who wasn't listed as the #1 on the depth chart, but really played well. Here's another screen, which seemed to be the most successful play for the Red Storm on the receiving side, as Burton in the backfield getting a nice run after the catch. And that was from Griff, really one of his most successful throws of the game. And then here's Jodon in the 4th quarter, the touchdown reception from Brody Garr, his 3rd touchdown of the year. And here's Garr making really a nice play, scrambling and then throwing back over the middle, and then Jodon showing his hops with a nice grab there.
Yeah, it's so nice to know whether you're Griff Robles or Brody Garr that you got #9, Jodon Duncan, to throw the ball to. He's a great athlete, but he really didn't get it going early in the game. When Garr came in, that's when he started racking up some catches. It seemed like they had a pretty good chemistry late in that game. A little too late, so to speak. You didn't see in the highlights the final Red Storm score, and that was Morton, who went up high in the end zone, and so Brody Garr found him for the score, but at that point, again, the final score 36-20, Storm fall to 0-1 in GNAC play.
And they'll try to bounce back with a win this upcoming weekend at Western Oregon at MacArthur Field, a place where the Red Storm have not picked up a W in their Division II tenure.
They're due.
They are due, and Western Oregon's kind of ripe for the picking. We'll hit on that in the football preview a little bit later on in the ball game. We're going to be joined by head coach Scott Brumfield in just a couple of moments. A lot of questions for the ball coach, including who's going to start at quarterback, what other deals have they gone through, what have they done on their evaluations as he promised coming after that game against Azusa Pacific.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to talk to him and hear what he has to say. And the Storm, they want to win. They feel like they got experience and senior leadership and all the ingredients to win, but so far after that 0-2 start on the season. So we'll see what the coach has to say.
Scott Brumfield, the head coach of Dixie State University's football team, getting ready to join us. As promised, later on in the show, we'll have recaps of the soccer trips up at Northwest Nazarene in the Northwest, as well as our volleyball team down in New Mexico. All that plus much more on the Red Storm Roundup coming up right after this break.
Someone once asked if I had put in a bench so that they had somewhere to sit as they're coming in. And to me, that's a waste of time and energy because all you do is dust it off as you come through. We've designed the pharmacy so you don't have to wait. As you come in, there might be a line, but within 10 minutes, we've got you out of our store.
Friendly service and a pharmacist who knows you by name. Stapley Pharmacy, your complete family pharmacy. We'll have you out the door in 10 minutes.
Welcome back to the Roundup. John Potter and Devin Dixon, as promised, joined by the head coach of the Dixie State University football team, Scott Brumfield. Coach, welcome aboard.
Good to be here.
You basically planned it out and said it after the ball game on Saturday when you were talking with Patrick Blake of ESPN Sports Radio in the post game. It was a wholesale look at your department and your program head to toe. What has that process been like over the last couple of days getting ready to prepare for Western Oregon?
It's been interesting, to say the least. After the game, it was difficult, and you evaluate yourself, you evaluate everything you're doing, your coaches are doing, your players are doing, you evaluate your personnel, your practices. I mean, you really take a gut check and look at it, and I challenge the players to do the same thing, and we did. We've looked at a lot of things and evaluated the tape over and over and over, and it's hard to take positives from losing, but they can also be learning experiences. But I thought we'd be beyond that stage where we're still learning, and so it was a real evaluation, making some changes, not only what personnel-wise, but what we're trying to do offensively and defensively, scheme-wise, and so it's been a busy week. Haven't had much sleep since Friday night, but hopefully after Saturday I'll be able to get some sleep.
Coach, I really felt like Azusa Pacific was a good football team, a team that can compete for the title, but you did struggle to get your backs going on the ground. Now, they were really effective out of the backfield, but then the lightning delay hit. Talk about the effect that had on your kids with a 2-hour plus delay.
If anything, I think it would be an advantage for us, being in our own locker room, being in our, I know they're crammed up in the fitness center locker room. If anything, there's no excuses. We should have came out better than Azusa Pacific. They're on the road, they're tired, they've traveled. We're in our home stadium, in our home locker room. So I don't think that was an advantage for them. I think it would have been, if anything, it would have been an advantage for us, and we should have taken advantage of that more.
You faced two really different looks offensively over the last couple of weeks with Idaho State, their spread option and just quick to the movement, and then Azusa Pacific showing that at times. What do you credit your defense to in making the change of giving up so many passing yards in the first week, kind of calming it down for a more balanced attack this past week against the Cougars?
It was tough. We had a lot of mistakes, we felt like, in our first game coverage-wise, and we had some again this week. And that's just something, you go back and evaluate, are we teaching them the right things? How come they're not getting these things mentally? Stuff we've repped over, two plays or two defensive calls against Azusa Pacific that they scored on were two of the same mistakes we made on one touchdown we gave up against Idaho State. So that's when you start evaluating, are we teaching them the right things? Are we teaching them through film? Are we teaching them on the field? And we evaluate why they're not picking it up, why we're continuing to make the same mistakes coverage-wise or alignment-wise in the run game. So it's an overall evaluation. But, we did see two very different offenses, and those are, the high-paced tempo of the speed of Idaho State to a more physical, balanced attack that Azusa Pacific showed us. So, it's just there was just too many mistakes. But defensively, I thought when our guys did the right things, when they lined up right, we were very effective, and that's what we tried to show them in film.
Coach, back to the quarterback situation. What do you do this week in practice? How do you divvy up the reps? I see Griff is listed on the depth chart as number 1, but you can't ignore Brody's gutsy performance. It's so hard to come in fourth quarter and actually look really good. You haven't had a lot of warm-up time, and Brody did look good he had one fumble, but overall, what's your approach going into game week preparations?
After I told all our kids after the game, every position's up for grabs, and we were able to really evaluate it, and there were some things Griff did right, there's some things he did wrong. Brody came in, did some good things, but he also made some mistakes as well. So, not only Brody's in the mix, but Ben Longshore, and so we evaluate all three of them. We're early in the week in our preparation for Western Oregon, so we're going to continue to evaluate, till Thursday when we have to turn in our airline tickets to go to Western on Friday. So things could change. Right now, Griff is still the guy, and hopefully he'll learn from those things, the first 2 weeks. But also, the guys can still push him this week, and things could change.
Coach, a final question for you as you prepare for the Wolves of Western Oregon. I'm going to steal a line from NFL coach Denny Green. Are they still what we think they are in Western Oregon football?
They're a very physical, big team. In fact, bigger than any Western Oregon team that I've seen. Maybe not as athletic, but they have some big guys, especially on the defensive front. And their offense line's big and physical. So you're still going to see that same big physical Western team that we've seen over the last 4 years. They lost some guys from last year, so hopefully, we're going to be prepared for it. Change a few things in our running game. We got to get our running game going, and so.
It's a 2 p.m. kickoff Mountain Time. If you're not going to make the trip down to Western Oregon, I'll have you covered on ESPN Sports Radio with the coverage, as well as online Dixie State All Access. Our thanks to head coach Scott Brumfield of the football team. We'll catch you on the road in Monmouth, as well as in future episodes of the Roundup.
Go get a win, Coach.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate
Get a W. When we return, we'll have capsules from volleyball, soccer, as well as naming our athletes of the week on the Red Storm Roundup. We'll be right back.
This is Titan 1-4. No signs of life.
Titan 1-4, hold your position.
What do you got?
Unmanned aircraft is identifying enemy sniper.
Copy that. Let's move. Thanks, Reaper 1-1. We got it from here. Sensors coming off target.
Learn more at airforce.com.
Sports Radio ESPN is now found exclusively on the FM dial at 106.1.
106.1.
Southern Utah's home for the best in sports includes local Region 9 high school games, Dixie State University, the NBA's new look, Utah Jazz, plus the best of the National Football League. With the worldwide presence of ESPN, to the Devin Dixon Show every afternoon from 4 to 6.
106.1.
Sports Radio ESPN is found exclusively on 106.1 FM.
Welcome back to the Red Storm Roundup. Our thanks again to head coach Scott Brumfield for joining us. Very insightful comments, and you could tell that the grind has already started for Red Storm football, so we'll see how the coach and the team react when they head to Monmouth this weekend.
And as far as the quarterback controversy goes, right now there's not a controversy, but I think you look at what could happen, and I think he's got 3 quarterbacks that are all really close in potential, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple weeks.
They've all got something different that they bring to the table, so we'll see how it plays out. Time to look at the capsules for our other sports. What has happened in the week of Red Storm athletics? And we'll start with our women's volleyball team as they headed to the metropolis of Las Vegas, New Mexico for a tournament hosted by New Mexico Highlands. And as you can see on the graphic, a split of that weekend 2-2 opened up with a victory in 4 sets against the home team of New Mexico Highlands, then dropped a 3-set straight 4-set loss to Western New Mexico, one of the better teams out of the RMAC. Then on day 2, swept through Western State of Colorado in pretty easy fashion, 14, 13, and 16. And then won the first set against the Mavericks of Colorado Mesa, another one of those good teams in the central region of the NCAA Division II ranks, but ended up dropping the next 3 to end up with the split of the weekend and some individual numbers. You got to love the 45 kills from Shannon Young on the outside. Those are some big numbers. A lot of attempts. You've got a lot of targets, but 45 kills in 4 matches is still pretty good. And then newcomers, Nicole Kaler and Kendall Whelan, both getting 27 and 30 kills. Whelan didn't play in the first match, ended up playing only the last 3 matches of the tournament, but a nice showing from a relatively young Red Storm team under Robin Felder, who's looking to improve after a disappointing season last year.
You know, I'm excited about the potential moving forward for volleyball. I really am. I think Coach Felder's really got them playing high intensity in practice. I mean, the girls are excited to play for her. I think there's a lot of positives with this volleyball team. You look at the scores in that Western New Mexico, they didn't lose by much. They battled, and they could have came away with 3 or 4.
So a good weekend for them, going 2-2 on the season or the series over at Western New Mexico. Let's go ahead and highlight our men's soccer program. They started out Tuesday here at home, losing their opener to Seattle Pacific. And you can say weather played a havoc as well, as they had a game scheduled the weekend before against Westminster. That was canceled out due to lightning. So to come in and play a pretty good, solid West Region team in Seattle Pacific ended up giving some late second half goals for that 3-0 loss. And then going on the road to Northwest Nazarene, a team that they had not lost to in 4 previous matches, and we're down 2-1 in the final moments, and then get 2 goals from Alex Lahan in that ball game, end up with a draw. So again, not a win on the books yet, but a nice solid outing before the team goes out this week for their Pac West opening series against Dominican, Fresno Pacific, and Notre Dame Dana Muir.
Yeah, Coach Ortiz is doing a nice job, and you know there was some matches before out of region or out of before the season started, exhibition games that got canceled, so it set him back a little bit. I look at Tyler Walters in the goal. He's got to have a sensational year for the soccer team. If he plays well between the posts, this team can start getting some breakaways, maybe get some to the back of the net on offense. This team could have a good year. They really could. There's a lot of potential on this club.
The question from last year was, who's going to score for Dixie State? Not a lot of goals in last year's stat column, but already 2 from a defensive player in Alex Lahan. You get the opportunity, you move him up into the forward position, and he got a header off of a corner kick, and then late in the ball game off a long set piece from David Pataki, and then put it in the goal. So good performance, and again, the Red Storm start out Pac West plays. We'll hit on our calendar a little bit later on. Transitioning to the women, they've been out on the road this past week in the Great Northwest, losing both 3-0 to Seattle Pacific and to nationally ranked Western Washington. No goals so far on the season for the Red Storm, and if you're talking about youth for first-year head coach Casey Bingham, the women's soccer team epitomizes that because they've struggled trying to find that identity for the women's soccer program.
Yeah, just one senior on this team. One senior, JP. I mean, you don't have a lot of veteran leadership, so younger girls are going to have to play mature, and they're going to have to, be leaders even though they're underclassmen. And Coach Bingham can coach, though. I mean, accolades when she took the job here. She's very capable. Their goals are realistic this year, and this is a team, though, that only has upside. This women's soccer program has been so good for so long, and I expect to continue, especially in the years to come.
Time to name our Athletes of the Week, brought to you by Northwestern Mutual Life. We mentioned her name on the women's volleyball tournament. It's Shannon Young for the women's volleyball team. Led the squad with 45 kills over 4 matches in Las Vegas, New Mexico. So congratulations to Shannon Young on the women's side. And on the men's side, Jake Duncan tying a career high with 14 tackles in the loss to Azusa Pacific, named our Northwestern Mutual Athletes of the Week. Good honors for both of those two.
Yeah, you mentioned Shannon, and she had a lot of digs and some blocks as well, so nice job. And then Jake was sensational. I mean, he really was everywhere, so congratulations. I expect much more of that out of Jake Duncan in the coming weeks.
Preview of the football game and the calendar of events when we return on the Red Storm Roundup.
Hi, I'm John Van Wagner, Director of the Community Education Channel. We are the community and educational TV channel for the communities of Washington County. Our studios are located at Dixie State University. CEC TV can be viewed on Baja Cable TV, Channel 22, and online at vodov.com. CEC provides students with hands-on television experience while producing sports, civic, and other unique content. For more information, go to cectv.org.
Why is Salisbury Homes the #1 builder in Southern Utah? It's simple. Unmatched quality, more selection, and happy homeowners. You'll love seeing prices less than buying an existing home. Amazing locations and a 45-day build schedule. The time to build is now, before prices go up. And with Salisbury, choose from dozens of floor plans, all beautifully designed, and you pick your own colors and finishes. Visit alwaysaffordablehomes.com today or call John at 435-703-4136.
Welcome back to the Red Storm Roundup with Devin Dixon. I'm John Potter. Time to look for the week that is upcoming for Dixie State University Red Storm athletics as we look at the calendar for upcoming events. Soccer will be on the road. They continue this extended road trip and start out Pacific West Conference play. Both are men and women. They start out Tuesday at Fresno Pacific. The Sunbirds, one of the best teams on the men's side, and their women's program is evolving nicely, so it'll be a good test for both the men's and women's team. Thursday, they'll head up a little further up the coast into the Bay Area to take on Notre Dame de Namur. The men's team for the Argonauts last year made it to the NCAA tournament, and that is always a battle when they go against the Red Storm. And then they close out the trip Saturday at Dominican, another up-and-coming program with great facilities. It should be 6 good matches and a chance for our women to get their first W of the year, as well as the men to try to go up and get some wins early in the Pac-West Conference, Dev.
Yeah, you got to go on the road and you try to get every game you can. This is a tough swing for those clubs. So if they can come back 500 or with an extra win rather than a loss, that'd be huge for the program.
Conference continues on as the women of Dixie State's volleyball team heads to the Bay Area as well. They'll start out Friday at Holy Names University. Again, a second-year program in the conference, so a chance for the women to add their first win of the season. They'll continue the road trip Saturday at Notre Dame de Namur, take Sunday off, and then head back to the Bay Area for Dominican on Monday, and then Academy of Art on Tuesday. Volleyball really condensing all 4 Bay Area schools into a 6-day trip. And for a young squad that's looking to build an identity before they come home for a very good stretch of games against some of the toughest Hawaii teams, this Bay Area trip could be a nice standard to start out for Robin Felder and the women.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at women's golf, they got a huge tournament down in Arizona, and the men's golf team out in Bellingham, they're going to have really good competition. And I'm excited about Coach Sutterfield and the golf team. I think they've done a nice job in recruiting. They got an SU transfer. I think it's going to help them. And then Kenny Yu, I mean, freshman of the year, top 15 in the country last year, kind of the flag, the number 1 spot for the golf team. I really think they could do well this year, so watch out for the golf team.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement from the players themselves and head coach Brad Sutterfield. I had a chance to talk with Aiden Christensen, one of the returners, a junior, and we just have casual conversation. Hey, how's your game going? How you shooting? And even with some back troubles that he's experiencing that is kind of limiting him on the swing, he's still shooting par and better, and he said that this team has a lot of camaraderie and just really likes playing golf together. So the Western Washington tournament, one of the great ones on the West Coast to begin the season, kind of your barometer. How are you going to fare against some of the top teams in the West? And that'll start next Monday as the team heads over to Bellingham, Washington. And as we've kind of talked about throughout the entire show, football will head to Monmouth, Oregon to take on the Western Oregon Wolves, the first road contest in Great Northwest Athletic Conference play, the first of 2 consecutive road games. Western Oregon this week, Humboldt State this week. And if you're looking at the history of the GNAC, Deb, both of these schools have been in the upper half of the league for the past couple of years. But Western Oregon beat up by Eastern Washington, an FCS opponent in week 1, going on the road and losing to Central Washington last week. This is really a prime opportunity for the Red Storm not only to get their first GNAC win, but their first win ever at MacArthur Field.
You know, and it would have been nice to get the home opener, but that didn't happen. So now you've got a lot of evaluation going on, and you've got an opportunity to go get it done on the road. You're not going to have as many fans. You're not going to have as much family at the game. You got your brothers, your teammates, and everybody's got to dig deep. This is a real pivotal part of the young season for the Storm. They really need to go out and get a road win, or even possibly 2, as they're back-to-back on the road for the next couple of weeks. And, you know, it's going to take a total team effort. They're going to have to clean up some mistakes. I still think a lot of their mistakes are correctable. I still think there's a lot of talent. I love the experience of this team. I know the coaches are working day and night to get this thing rectified, and that gives me confidence. But it was a disappointing loss in week 1 in that 30-26 loss. And you heard Coach Brumfield right here on the show say, we've got to evaluate, we've got to have the right kids doing their jobs, and we've got to put it all together. And we've got to put it together quick, JP, because, you know, you want to compete for a title in GNAC, and you've got to get it done. You cannot give away too many games. You got to get to 5 or 6 wins to have a chance to win the title in the conference.
And we'll have coverage on ESPN Sports Radio 106.1. I'll be live from Monmouth at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, pregame about 15 minutes before that. And if you need any information as it relates to game times, match times, or where you can watch and have live stats of all of our other games while the Red Storm are on the road, log on to DixieAthletics.com, your online home for Red Storm sports. With that, we thank Scott Brumfield for joining us for this first edition of the Red Storm Roundup, as well as our staff here at CEC producing behind the scenes. Deb, awesome doing.
Nice job.
We'll talk to you next week. This has been the Red Storm Roundup. We'll catch you next week. Bye now.
The preceding program was produced by the Community Education Channel and is available online free at vodov.com.